What if I told you this beautiful website you are seeing right here was built from scratch using only HTML and CSS only? No JavaScript, no framework, just purely front-end magic. As you can see here, we have the HTML file, the styles, and some beautiful picture we used in the project. Now in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to rebuild it from scratch step by step. Let's put those beginner skills into real world results. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to go into my front-end course folder, and this is the file for the website we are going to build right now. As you can see, I've already dropped in some images for the website. I've dropped them in by default, and these images I'm going to be dropping them in the description section so that you can download them if you want to and build along with me. Alright, next thing, I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code editor, and I'm going to create a file. Actually, I'm going to open up this folder, this folder right here. I'm going to go to desktop, and this portfolio v2 folder, I'm going to open it up here, and we can see all our images nicely lined up in here. These are the images we are going to be using in this site. Now you can also drop in your own image. You don't have to use mine. I would prefer if you dropped yours. So then I'm going to open a file, create a new file, index.html, and a CSS file as well. Style, you can name it anything you want. The CSS, just make sure the .css and .html is there, but for the other side you can name it if you want it index, if you want it anything else. Index is just standard. All right, then I'm going to bring out my boilerplate. Before we go on and start designing, I want to introduce you to an extension which we are going to be using in this course. It's called the live server, server extension. So head on to your extension tab and search for live server. This is it by Ritwick Dave. Now what the live server does is that we don't have to be it automatically refreshes our page whenever we make an update to our HTML file, meaning we don't have to keep on hitting the refresh button whenever we make a new change. So for instance, now once you've downloaded it, you will now hit this button that says go live. Once you've downloaded the extension, make sure it's installed. You may need to restart your VS Code editor for to start using it. But once you've downloaded it, just click on the go live button right here. All right, and then you will see a port 5500. Next thing, you're going to open a new tab in your browser and click on localhost host column 5500. So this is our file. This is our file. We have nothing here, but if I do something like h1 hello world, observe, I didn't have to refresh it. It just came up by itself. So it's very helpful when we are working with our HTML and when we are building websites, so we don't have to keep on hitting the refresh button. It saves a little bit of time, not so much, but just a little bit that can be productive. All right, so let's start building our website. This is what we are trying to build right here. So the first thing we're going to be building is this navbar over here. As you can see, I have my initials and I have some important link here which we are going to be working on. So first things first, like I said, if you've been watching some of my videos up until this point, you would remember when I spoke about the box model. Everything in CSS is a box. You have to imagine everything as a box. So let's just see this as a big box, and let's see this as another box. So we have like two boxes within one large box. So one box has two boxes inside of it. So first of all, let's first create the first box, this orange box over here. No, this purple, sorry, purple. So um header. Now you don't have to create a header, but it's just it's if you've also been watching my video up until this point, you'll notice that I've spoken about semantic HTML. So semantic HTML is a way of making things more meaningful. So it's good for SEO, and it's just good practice actually. It's good practice. I can decide to just go ahead and create a nav or a div, but it always makes more sense to use a header for your nav bar. Anything you are putting in the header should go inside a header tag before you start building your website. So first of all, our nav bar, nav. So this is what we are going to be working with, our nav. Then we have two things inside, this side and this other side. All right, so I'm going to give it a h1 k.c capital letter, then it shall. Then I'm going to do a list, and let me see what we have here. So everything is coming together. So we have this over here, and we have a list of link navigation links, which are about, skill, and portfolio. So li, I'm going to copy this li downwards. So that is, I'm going to use shift option if you're on a MacBook, but if you're using Windows, is shift and alt key down, shift and alt key down. But if you're on a MacBook, shift option down. So those are one of the shortcuts in Visual Studio Code. So about let me see what else we have there. About, skills, and portfolio. About skills. Then we also have portfolio. All right. Yes, everything is coming together. Now, before we start styling, I want you to take notice of something. There's some space here and there's some space here. Now, these things are default styles that the browser puts in place, and these styles can be different across all browser. They are just some default styles that a browser put in place, and they can actually be different, like I said, across all browser. Now I want to reset all settings, not all, but just some of them that might give me an issue in building this website. So I'm going to reset some of the settings, which is the default margin. Now it's always nice you reset when you are building from scratch. If you're not using a framework, maybe like Bootstrap or Tailwind, which we would talk about as we begin to progress in this course. It's always nice that you reset some of these settings that appear by default. Reason being that it might make your code appear different, or your website in this case appear different across different browser. So it's best that you reset everything, so you know you are working with a clean canvas. And because these settings can be different across different browser. For instance, now I might, if I decide to work with this little padding here, I might decide to work with it in another browser. This padding might not be so little, it might not be so little, it might be a large padding. And because I've already put in mind that I want to work with a little padding, if users are viewing my website from a different browser, it might cause issues with the way it's being rendered. I hope that was easy to understand. So I'm going to reset some of these things. I'm going to remove the padding and the margin across all elements on this website, so that when I'm introducing new paddings or new styles, I know that it's coming purely from my code, not from the browser. Now the way I do that, first let me make sure my CSS file is connected. The link, CSS. Okay, styles.css. All right. I'm going to first of all just put in some resets, browser reset, and I'm going to use the universal selector for this. So the universal selector targets all elements on the page. So I'm going to give all elements a margin of 0, a padding of 0. Then I'm going to give the box sizing of border box. I spoke about the box sizing property when I released a video on CSS, the box model. So if you don't understand it, you can go back to just refresh on it and what it does. It just makes our code easier to work with when it comes to the width and the padding and the border. So when we are specifying our width, it makes sure that the padding and the border of an element is included in the width. All right. So if we go back to our page, you can see that the styles have applied already. So we are working with a clean canvas right now, and I didn't have to refresh it thanks to my live server extension. Now there are some additional styles I want to add to the body of this page, the body overall of this page. And just before we start styling, let me just put this one under reset. Let's call this reset. So the body, okay, yeah. So I'm going to give this is I'm following my AI because I've done this before. My AI is bringing up recommendations based on what it knows about my code, and this is what I want to do actually. So I'm going to give all colors. So the text color, I'm going to give them a color of this. It's a blackish kind of color. Then the background color, no, I don't want this actually. Then the font family of all text on this page is going to be Arial. You can decide to use anything else, but this is what I use for the styling of this page. Then also, I'm going to give this body a minimum width, no, a minimum height of 100 VH. What that does is that it makes sure the body take up like at this point, this is where my body stops. Despite the fact that this page is long, the body by default does not take up this whole page. So when I set it, give it a minimum height of 100 VH, the body takes up the whole page of the web page. And that's important because I'm going to be giving the body a color. So we're going to have a background color, a whitish kind of background color, and I want the whitish color to show across the whole page. So this is also a form of reset because I don't think most browser give the body. It might be different on some, because some browser might add differently, but it's always nice to have this in place to make sure your body takes up the whole screen. Just in case I want to give it a black theme, it makes sure the whole page, and I decide to give the body black, a color of black, the whole page will be black, just the way I want it to be. All right, so let's get to styling our navbar. Then one more thing I want you to take notice of is this list over here. If you notice, let me just uncomment this out. So us setting a padding of 0, it's remove the paddings that is here by default. But before I want to remove the padding, I want to show you something. I'm going to give all UL a style of none, list style of none. What that does is that it removes the dots over here. If I comment this out, you see that the dots are back. So the list style of none, it removes the dots over here because I don't need them for this particular task. Then the padding of 0, it applies to all elements actually, but we have a padding here. because this element starts from here all the way up to this point. But the reason why it's not starting from here is because there's a padding that is applied by default to list elements by browsers. So when I remove this padding from here, it goes back to normal. So that's about that. Now, first of all, we are going to start working on our navbar, and I'm going to select the this nav over here. So I'm going to first of all, the header element, the header. Now the nav is inside the header element, so I'm going to nest it inside the header element. So what this is saying is that target the nav element which is found inside a header, a header. So if I had a nav that is not inside a header, these styles would not apply to it. All right, so I'm going to style my nav. I'm going to give it a background color of blue, not blue exactly, but a bluish color. A and it's A. So it's a blue kind of color. So this is it right here. This is where it sits. And observe, this is it right here. We are getting there. Then second, I'm going to give the text in between a color of white. Just white, just simple white. Now, observe, you know that remember that I've given the body a color before. This is for the general text in my website. But at this point, I'm saying the text within the navigation link, that is the nav bar found within the header, give them specifically a text of a color of white. So this one has a higher, you could say a higher specificity at this point because it's more direct. This one is a general distance. So this one would tend to apply most to the nav bar. But for other text on the page, they will take this color. Now, observe we have white member here. Then secondly, I want to give it a width of 80%. So that's 80% of the page. So it's going to take 80% of this total length here. Then I want to center it. So I'm going to distribute space across around this block, equal amount of space here and equal amount of space here. And I'm going to do that with the margin property. I'm also going to give it some space above. As we can see here, we have space here, we have space here, and we have some space above. So I'm going to go back to my code and I'm going to give it a margin of 5 pixels, 15 pixels actually. Now, when we have two value, I've talked about this before. When we have two value, what this is going to do is that it's going to give the first value is going to apply to the vertical axis, that is up and down. Then the second value is going to apply to the horizontal axis, that is right and left. So I'm saying 50 pixels up and down. And then what this auto do is that it's going to center it. It's going to apply the same amount of space on the right and on the left. So it's going to help us center our element, as you can see right here. So we are getting there, we're almost there. So you can see that it's starting to look like, this right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to give it a flex, a display flex. I talked about Flexbox. I have a video on Flexbox. You can go back to watch it. It would really help if you don't know what Flexbox is. So display flex will just automatically just give us a layout. Without this, you can see that they stack upon each other, but display flex give us a layout. Then I'm going to give it a property of justify content, space between. So it's going to put space in between them. It's going to separate them. As you can see here, they've been separated. Stay on your own. So that's practically what it does. Then I'm going to also align it, make sure it's centered on the vertical axis. I'm going to make sure it's centered. Okay, align item center. So it's now centered. Everything's going to be centered. This was up. Let me show you that it was up. So it's going to bring everything to be centered on the vertical axis. This one doesn't, it's not going to be centered right away because it's taking up the whole space. But you know what, let me just leave this comment out for now so that or you know what, let me just leave it in actually. Then I'm going to give it a padding of 18 pixels. Remember, padding is the space in between the border and the content. So when I give a padding of 18 pixels, you see that, imagine we have, this is where the border would normally stay. So just imagine we have just imagine there's an imaginary border right here. Imagine there's a border right here. So when I say padding 18 pixels, it's telling me put in some space within the element, within the border. That means space in between the border and the content. So we have some space here, we have some space here, and so a pattern of 18 pixels applies 18 pixels of space all around the element, as we can see. Then I want to make this curved. As if we look in here, you can see that we have some curved edges, almost like a circular kind of thing, but not circular, but curve actually. The way we do that is that we apply it's called border radius. You can see that my AI is catching up, but it's not getting my exact value. I don't want 18 pixels, I want 15. So if I decide to keep on increasing this, say I give it a value of 50, so you see that it's becoming more and more into a circle. If I decide to just say 500, just crank it up. Okay, this is the highest it can go at this width. If this width was shorter, let's say something around here, it would automatically start forming a circle. It would actually form a circle eventually. I can also decide to use percentage if I don't want to use 5%, and that also works. But what I want to use here is 15 pixels. Yeah, so 15 pixels is what I'm doing. So we are getting there. Then second, I want to work on this part of the page, the list element, which is this side of things, the list. I'm going to give it a value. So I'm telling it to target the list inside of the header. So the list, this list that is found inside of the header. Even though I can as well decide to put this list inside here. I can just do UL, so it would be more specific if I say the list inside of the header within the nav, inside of the nav bar within the header. That will be more specific, but it also works this way. It's just going to target the list inside of the header. This is the header, so we do have a list inside of the header, so that still works. All right, so when you are nesting things like I'm doing here, you're nesting a nav within the header, you are going deep. I would recommend you don't go more than 3 levels deep so that your code does not look messy and you don't look confused when you're coming back to maintain it. You can do that, it still works, but just as a good practice, try not to go 3 level deep. So this is 1 level, this is 2 level. I can decide to nest this inside here, but I would not go beyond. For instance, if I want to target the li now, if I create an header, I create a nav and I put this list inside here, and I am starting the list, and I decided, okay, I also want to target the LIs, which is this LIs, this list item, the list items within the UL. I would not, you can do it, but I would not recommend it so that your code does not look rough. I will just go on to the next line because it's still valid code. The li is still within the header element, so it would still work. It's still valid code. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, and if you don't, please just leave your questions in the comment section. I would answer it as fast as I can. So this list, we want to make them horizontal, and we are going to use Flexbox to do this. All right, so we're going to give the UL a display of flex. Observe what that does. So you can see that it spaces it out. Then we are going to give it a justify content of space between. Let's justify content. Space. Do I see a space between? Okay, your space between. Okay, what is happening here is that there's no extra space for it to there's no extra space for it to put in between. So the UL is just as wild as from here to this point. If we decide to check it with our inspector, we can look at the UL elements in between here. Where is it? So you can see it when I'm highlighting it right now. So you can see that the UL is just from here. So it's from here to this point. There's no space in between it. So how will I resolve that? I'm going to give it a width. I'm going to use flex basis because in Flexbox it's more preferable to use flex basis rather than using width. So I'm going to give it a flex basis of 200 pixels. So now when I use 200 pixels, there's going to be additional space because 200 pixels is wider than the text. So there's going to be additional space for it to put in between these elements. Remember, before the default width was just contain this three. Now 200 pixels is much longer than just this three. So the extra space that comes with setting it to a width of 200 pixels is now managed in between the elements when I use space between. I hope you got that. Then I'm going to give it a width. I want it to be thick, a font width. I'm going to make this bold. So to make things bold, I'm going to give it a font width of, I could also use 700. I think 700 is the font width number for bold. So you could either use 700. I'm not sure if it's 700. I will check that out. 700 or use bold. As a matter of fact, let's just try our AI and ask it what is the font width for bold. So it's coming. It's a little bit slow. All right, yes, I was right. So it's 700. We can either set it to 700 or just use outplane bold. Then semi bold should be 500. I think 600 semi bold. Then normal should be around 400 or 5, but that's a topic for another day. So let me just move this and go back. So now you can see that they are bold now. If I comment this out, observe they're not so bold, but when I do this, they are now bold. So we are getting there. We're getting there. I think we are pretty much done with this. Now what I want to do now is that I want to add a shadow. If you look at this now, you can see that we have a little bit shadow underneath here. It's called a box shadow, and I want to apply it here as well. To do that, I'm going to go over here and drop a property called the box shadow property. Box shadow. Now it takes in at least a maximum of 5 values. That is the X offset, the Y offset, the blur radius, and then we have a fourth value, which is the spread radius, and then we have the color. But I'm only going to be using 4 in this case. So the first is going to be the X offset. I want it to be 0. The X offset is either I want to position the it's just how I move the shadow up or below the container or the object I'm trying to put a shadow on. So the X offset is just sorry, the horizontal, how I move the shadow from right to left. For instance, now if you look here, this is the shadow. It's below. I can decide that I want it above. So the X offset controls the horizontal movement from right to left. If I want the shadow to come out here, or if I want the shadow to show at this end, That's the left to right. Then the Y offset controls it, the movement of the shadow or the positioning of the shadow from the top to bottom. As you can see here, at this point, there is no shadow showing here. The shadow is only showing below here. So I can control it where I want it to be, either above or below. So at this point, you can see that we applied a value of 0 for the X offset. That's why we are not seeing anything at this point. We're not seeing much of a shadow at this point. So the X offset is going to be 0. Then the Y offset is going to take a value of 4 pixels. 4 pixels. Then the next one is the blur radius, and the blur radius is going to take a value of X pixels. So the blur radius, it creates a blur. If I remove this value, you're going to see that the color is going to be very sharp. It's going to be very sharp. But in this case, it's not sharp. It's the blur you are seeing there. It's called the blur radius. So how much blur I want to add to the shadow, the shadow, how much blur I want to add to the shadow. Then the last value I'm going to be using here is an RGB color, and the first value is going to be 23. So an RGB is a combination of red, green, and blue. So a combination of red, green, and blue to give you different shades of other colors. So 23 for the red, 72 for the green, and for the blue we are going to have a value of 116. And then the last value is the alpha value. It controls transparency. Yeah, transparency. So how transparent you want the shadow to be, or fully transparent. I'm going to give the value of 0.7, and voila, you can see that we have our shadow. You might not be able to see it. I might have to zoom this in for you to see it, but this is our shadow in here. If I comment it out, it disappears, and when I put it back in, it reappears. So that's it about that. So if I remove this, this is the blur radius. I decide to remove it out. Let's see what happens. So you can see that it's not blurred anymore. It's showing the color, the sharp color I picked, which is this color over here. Is it a cyan, a bluish kind of cyan color? So it's showing the color for what it is here. And this, so when I put that back in, that's the blur. So it blurs it out, so it looks more like a shadow at this point. And if one more thing, you can notice that there's a little bit of space here uh in this our finished product, but in ours it shrinks. Now that is the line height. uh if you've used a Word document, which many of us, I hope, have used, and you are typing, maybe you're typing articles, or you're doing an assignment, the space in between each line, so it has to do with the line height, the space in between each line of a sentence. When you go to the next line, the when you go to the next line, so the space in between sentence, rather, not line, but the space in between sentence, that's where we are, well, that's what we are working with. So I'm going to go back to the body and give it a line height of 1.5. You may have seen this in Microsoft Word or something like that. So the line height of 1.5 is not double spacing, it's just a space of 1.5, which is less than double, and it gives space down here. So you can see that we are done with our navbar at this point, and doesn't it look just beautiful? Now one more thing I want to do is I want to give this link a hover effect. As you can see, as I'm going over there, it's coming up. So I want to give this link over here a hover effect. I'm also going to put an S here, because I noticed that I didn't leave an S here. So S. Now for our link, I'm going to go back here under body. I'm going to give it, I'm going to use a pseudo class, which is the hover pseudo class. So the styles apply when mouse hovers over it. And I'm going to give it a color of 256. 3EB. So it's a blue like color. So let's see how that looks. When we hover over it, uh maybe something's wrong. Okay, I used a double column instead of one. When we hover over it, what is happening? Let me try refreshing it. Okay, that didn't work. Let me look into my code. Okay, I see the issue. I have not yet at this point, these things are not linked at this point because I've not given them an anchor tag. So they are just list element at this point. So I'm going to give them an anchor tag. Put about. So, okay, I'm going to come down here and give it an anchor tag as well and put skill. So I hope you understood what happened. I was targeting the link, the anchor tag, but there were no anchor tag here to target. So it was not targeting anything. And I was supposed to include this as anchor tag, not just a list. So they are anchor tag within the list, because they are links. They're supposed to take us somewhere. They take us somewhere because that's what anchor tags are. They are used for links. So now that I've used the link, you can see that it's already showing up here. It's already showing up here. So they are showing up as link as this. Now, um, I gave this value. I gave I think I gave. Let's go into our code. So I gave all colors in the navbar a color of white. However, you can see that when I put anchor tags here, links, they are not taking up this color of white. They have their own specified color, which are put in by default by the browser. So the browser puts in them by default. You can see that they have color and they are also underlined. So there is an underline here, and they are purplish by default. So that is another reset we have to do. In fact, let's just give this up from here to here is a reset. Then we can say these are page styles. So let's reset that default quality, the default behavior of the browser, and give our anchor tag. Okay, yes, a text declaration of none. If I do text decoration rather of none, you will see that it removed the underlines that are here. So the underlines, they are no longer underlined, they are now removed. They don't have line under them at this point. So that's what text decoration none does. It removes the decoration from it. We can decide to style it in some other way we want it to be. If it's not if we don't want it to be underlined, you want to use a form of other decoration, you can use it there. But at this point, I'm moving the underline with text decoration none. Then secondly, I'm going to tell it to take on a color of inherit. I can decide to give it a color of white, and you see that it becomes white at this point. It becomes white. Or what I could do is that I could just give it a value of inherit. What I ask it to do is that it just inherits the color of the container, and the color of the container at this point, which is the nav, is white. So by default, the link takes up the color that is being specified or styled at the container level, at the parent level, and the parent is the nav. This is our link. This is the immediate parent, but the parent we can see here is the nav, and we've styled this nav to take a color of white. So that color would go down to the lowest elements there. It will go down from the top to the lowest elements here, and when we tell it to inherit, it will automatically respect that value of white. I'm going to move this, I'm going to nest it inside here. And when we are nesting it, I can change this to an ampersand. What this means is that it's just the same as saying A. So what the ampersand does is that the and or ampersand, what it does is that it takes the value of the container. So it's just an alias for A. It's just a way of me just saying A. It's the same thing as saying A. So whatever value you have at the top level is what is used as the ampersand. If this was a P tag or a div tag, it would act as if this is a div. I hope I'm making sense. It's just a way of specifying. For instance, if I have something like this, div, rather than me repeating that same value here, div here, the ampersand just takes what is here and puts it here. And it makes more sense when you are nesting, because you don't want to use the same value in here again. So at this point we are using A. So the ampersand still targets this value and adds a pseudo class of hover. So when I hover on it with my mouse, the value, the color of the link changed to this color. It changed to a bluish color, which we have here. So I hope this is all making sense as I'm talking. You please always feel free to ask questions in the comment section if this is hard to, if you're not getting it. Then now that we are done, we are finally done with our navbar. We are going to go into our hero section of things. All right, so see this again as a box. Like I said, everything in CSS is a box. So this is an outside container box, and then within that container box we have two other boxes somewhere here and another one somewhere here. So let's create this hero section. So we're going to go into our HTML file. We are no longer, this is not a header. This is our header. Everything here is our header. And your header, in if you are creating a website, typically your header is replaced, is always on each page or most of the page on your website. And what tends to be in the header is a navbar. So the navbar would be on most of the pages on your website. So back to our hero section, you're going to use a section tag. We can use a div, but like I said, it's just more meaningful to use a section. Now I want to give this this section an ID of hero. So I can do section hashtag ID and say hero. This is a shorthand version of doing it, and just click on tab, and you can see I have section and a ID of hero. Then that's about it. Then this is our first container. Then, like I said, we have two other boxes within that container. We have one here and we have one here. So I'm going to give it the first one is going to be a div for the first container. And now one more thing, I want to put this whole container. Okay, I want to put everything from here up to this level inside the main tag. So at this point, we have this first one inside the header. We have this from here, from this point to this point inside the main tag, and then we have everything here inside the footer. Now you don't have to do it like this, it's not compulsory, but it's just best practice. Like I said, it's all about optimizing your site for bots, not just human being, but bots and SEO. So that when Google, for instance, is displaying your website on the search result, when people search for your website, Google understands your site well enough to be able to represent it well. Although Google is quite smart, so even if you don't do these things, they have other ways of figuring it out. But still, to follow best practice and to help people with disabilities, or just to follow best practice, it's just helpful to arrange your site in a more um optimized, a well optimized fashion. So I'm going to create a main tag. So the main is for most of what is in your website. For the bulk of what is in your website, that is things that are not in the header section and in the footer section. So let me just leave a footer here. We are going to get back to this later on, but let me just leave it so now we have three sections of your website. We have the header, which is from here to here. We have the main, which is the main content of the site, and we have the footer section. This header and footer, footer and header, typically they would reappear on all pages in your website. That is how website that's a typical design of website. The header section, whatever is within the header section, would always repeat itself across pages. The main is peculiar to that particular page. That is what is only found on that page only. And then the footer as well is it repeats itself across most pages on a website. So now let's go back to our section. I'm going to copy and paste this thing. So we have a hero section. We have two box within the hero section. We have an H1, which says web developer, web developer. And then we have paragraph tag. I'm just going to copy this. Copy this and paste it here. All right. So let's see how that looks. Okay, we're getting together. Then we have a button that says hire me. Hire me. So that's the first inner box. So the second inner box is an image. And that image is right here. Yes, this is the image if I'm correct. Yes, the web icon image. So / web icon. So I'm going to drop a link to these images in the description section so that you can code along with me. So let's see how that looks right now. It's not so pretty, but we are getting to that point. So the first thing we are going to do now is we are going to give it a width of that is our hero section. So we're going to give a hero section a width of 80%. So you can see that there's a shift here. If I comment that out, it goes all through before, but now it's cut. Now the reason why it goes all through is because by default a div element as you can see, a div or section is a block element by default. So block elements are elements that take up the whole space where they are placed. They take up the whole horizontal space where they are placed. They don't share space, they take up the whole space. Then inline elements are elements that take up the space that they fill. For instance, now an image is an inline element by default. I'm going to change it to a block, but by default the browser settings, an image is an inline element, meaning that they only take up the space in which they occupy. And if I were to place another image here, it will show up here so long as there is enough space to take it here. But a block element will take up the whole space. It doesn't matter if there is still extra space. For instance, now this is a block element. This is an h1, a block element. Then we have a paragraph tag. Observe that this paragraph tag did not start from here, because this h1 is a block. H1s are block elements. They take up the whole space, and because they do, the paragraph tag has to start on the next line. The paragraph tag is also a block element, meaning that they take up the whole space from the right to the left. They don't share space. Even if I am web here, even if all these were not part of it, this button will still not come up here because this is a block element. Then this button is an inline element, meaning that if I put another inline element here, like a button, observe. So we have two buttons saying hire me. The hire me would come by size because by default, the browser settings, a button is an inline element, meaning that they only take up the space in which they occupy, and if there is another element which is also an inline, it can share up the space in the horizontal space. I hope that was easy. That was easy to understand. All right. So now we gave our section a width of 80%. Now we are going to center it by giving it a margin of say 4 rem up and down, 4 rem up and down, that space up and down, and then it's going to be centered because of this auto. So it has been centered now. As you can see, it's no longer on this side. If I decide to comment that out, so it brought this to the center, and it also gave some space up here, right? So next, I'm going to give this a display of flex so that we can create layouts just as we have here, right and left. So moving forward, this is going to be a display of flex. Now if you check that, you can see that everything is starting to come together. All right, then second, I am going to justify content, put space in between, justify content, space between. I'm also going to align it center. Then I'm going to give it a padding. First of all, let's see what we have done. Okay, we're getting there. Doesn't look like it's just yet. I'm going to give it a padding at the top. I'm going to give it a padding of 25 pixels. That's the spacing at the top. Then I'm going to, you know what, just before I give it a padding, let me give it a background color so that you can see what is happening. Now the background I use for this is a gradient. You can see that it goes from a brown like color to a blue like color. So this is what we call color gradients. If you are familiar with designing, graphics design and the likes, or anything, you've probably seen something like this. So we are going from one color to the other color. Now this is how we use color gradient in when creating in CSS rather. Observe, I use background. I didn't use background color. So background is another shorthand. It's a shorthand for, as you can see, a shorthand property for setting most background properties at the same time. Just as we spoke with border for shorthand and margin for shorthand, rather than saying border left and all. So I'm going to say linear gradient. Then I'm going to give it from to right to right. You can specify other things like to left or to top to bottom. There are many other complicated things you can do with this option, but we are going to keep a simple one, just to right. Then I'm going to give it a color, a brown like color, which is a 4D1, well, 4D1502, which this is the brown like color. And I'm also going to give it a color of a blue like color, which is a 3. The color code is 3BC or 3B6 CB7. So 3B6 CB7, and this is the brown color. You can see that my code is already bringing them out for you to see. Now let's see what we have here. So you can see that we are getting there. It's not pretty just yet, but we are getting there. So I'm going to give this a color of white. It's going to be a color of white. So everything within the hero section is going to be a color of white. So it has turned white now. Then back to our padding. I'm going to put in some space here. and but you know what, just before I do that, I want to work on these two sections. Let me first target the first section, which is I'm going to use a pseudo class to target it, which is div first child, the div first child property. Now we are targeting a div within the hero section. So this is the hero section. Now the div, these are two div, yeah, but we are targeting the first child. Is a pseudo class, the first child, and this is the first child. So the first div, this is what we are targeting, yeah. So within this first child, we are going to give it a flex basis, which is a width, flex basis of say 40%. Then we are also going to give them the margin, the paragraph tag there within this first child. We are going to give it a margin bottom, because we want space beneath it. A margin bottom of 20 pixels. Then lastly, let's see what we've done yet. So this is it here. Then we give it a margin button. We put in some space between this paragraph tag and the button. If I decide to comment this out, you will see that the space closes up. So this is the space. Then we are also going to target this element, this image over here. So we are targeting the last div, the image within the last div. So that's div, the last child. Let me just comment this out. So we're going to give it a flex basis of 30%. Uh, 30%, but it's not coming up just yet. So you know what? I'm going to first comment this out. Now, because it's an image, images the way they add sometimes can be funny. So you have to, I'm going to apply another reset over here to our image to control the width of the image. So the reset I'm going to be applying, first of all, is a maximum width of 100 and a display. Like I said, we have the block display and we have the inline display, we have the flex, but I'm talking about block and inline right now. An image by default has a display of inline, so I'm going to change it to block so that it's easier to work with, and I'm going to give it a max width of 100%. Now nothing changed. Now that I've told it to take a max width of 100% of whatever container it's inside in. So before, when I set this property, nothing changes. Even though I gave the property that is the div, that is the parent element, I gave it a width of 30. This image did not respect it. It was still giving its normal width, the normal width of the image. It was just showing up there. Now, because images can be funny sometimes when we are working with them in CSS. But now I've told them that every image should take a maximum width of 100 pixels, of 100%. Now, when I apply this back, a flex basis of 30%, that image is going to be 100% of this current width. So 100% of 30% of the container. So whatever width the container takes with this 30%, the image will now be 100% of that. Let's see what happens. So I hope that was easier to understand. So before, it did not work because we had not touched this image. Like I said, image can be funny the way they work in CSS. We have to give them a width of a specified width, maybe a relative width like percentage or a fixed width in pixels. We have to tell them how to work, how they should behave rather. So now that we are done with that, we've set our gradients. I want to apply some padding over here. Some padding where I don't want it touching the edges or the border side. I want to apply some padding. So this is the padding we are going to apply. I'm going to uncomment this right back and give it at the top. It's going to have a padding of 25 pixels at the top. At the right hand side where the image is, I want the image to be, as of now I applied 25 pixels, so it's going to put 25 here, 25 here, 25 here, 25 here. But that's not how I want it. I want 25 up here, a space of 25 up here. On the right hand side I want a space of 90 pixels because I want this image to be closer. Then on the bottom side I want 25. Then here I want 40. As you can see here, the image is much closer. So we are going back now. We are going to give it on the top 25 pixels on the top. On the right hand side 90 pixels. On the bottom side 25 pixels. And then on the left side 40 pixels. And voila, everything is coming together step by step. Now we have to put this edge, these rounded corners here, just like we have here. Now to put those rounded corner, we're going to talk about our border radius one more time again. And yes, it's a 15 pixels border radius. Then I also want to give it a box shadow value. A box shadow value. As you can see here, there is a shadow at this point too, just like we applied here. There's a little bit of shadow here, so it's not so obvious. I may have to zoom in again. So we're going to apply that same shadow here. So you might have to zoom in to see it. We're going to apply it right here. This shadow we have at this point, we are going to apply it here again. So we're going to give it a box shadow of let me see if my AI got it right. 72116. Yeah, that's the box shadow. So we are going to apply this there. This is the X, like I said, the X horizontal. Nothing, we are not targeting the X, so it's going to be 0. Yeah, the bottom part is going to be 4 pixels. This is the Y, so it's going, the bottom part 4 pixels. Then this is the radius, the blur radius, how blurry we want it. And this is the color we are aiming for. And this is our beautiful looking shadow. So we are getting to it. All we need to do is just style this side of things. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is to style the H1. I'm not sure we should be using a H1 at this point. I think I would prefer we use an H2. Although for this original builds, I use an H2, but most of the time I prefer we only use H1 per page, and I've already used H1 here. So unless you know what you're doing, a general rule of thumb is to just use one H1 per page. There are some circumstances where you can use it. You know what, I'm just going to leave it at H1 here, but just keep that in mind. So for that H1 now, I'm going to start it, give it a font size of 3 rem, and a margin bottom of 20 pixels, which is what we have here. So you can see that it's all coming together. Now then we have our paragraph tag, which is which is really nice. Now you can observe that there is a spacing in between them, which is the line. This is the line height that I set earlier. If I decide to remove this line height from our reset, I comment it out, you will notice that they are all scrambled together. They're all tight and packed together. So when I give it a line height of 1.5, there is space. If I increase it, the space will become much and much, but I think 1.5 should do the trick, which is what I used earlier. Then we're going to move on to the button. We are going to move on to style the button at this point. So now this is our button over here. So the button within the hero section, we're going to give it a padding of top and bottom 10 pixels, left and right. Yeah, my AI is following up. We are going to remove the border. Actually, this is the background color. I want to give this background color, so you can see that it's already changing. If I If I remove this out, so we added some padding top and bottom, left and right. So then I'm going to remove this border element here. So border none. You can see that the border has been removed from it. I'm going to give it a color of white because that black is not making sense like that. Color, no, this is white, no, this is black. White is FFF, or you can make it 6F. But why, I mean, it's white. We don't have to use color code for white. I mean, it's white. So I prefer the named color when I'm using simple colors. When I'm not using complex colors, we cannot talk about using all this hexadecimal color system. But for simple colors like white, I prefer just making it obvious is white. So not to complicate things. Then a border radius to put some curve on it, a simple curve on it. Border radius of 5 pixels, just simple. So you can see that it has been curved right now. Let me just move this color down. I like the arrangement like that. So then I want to give the cursor a pointer. If you notice, when my mouse hover over this thing, I want it to change, just like observe when I hover over the link, it changed to a hand symbol, indicating that this is clickable. That's what it means, that this is clickable. But by default, the browser does not set this by default, so I have to do it myself. So the property is called cursor, and we're going to give it a value of pointer. But you can see that there are different values I can give it for progress. Just there are so many. Just when you visit a typical website, you see how your mouse tend to behave. This is the property that sets it for you. But I'm going for pointer right now. And observe, when I bring my mouse closer to it, it changes value to this. So now I'm going to set the font size to 1.2, the font size of the text to 1.2 rem. Font size, okay, my AI is on top of his game. So you can see that the button is looking so beautifully styled and nice. Now I want it to be that whenever I hover over this button, it changes color, just like you can see here. But in this case, I don't want it to be the text. I want it to be the background color that changes only, not the text. So within this button, I'm going to add a hover class to this button, but I want it to be nested within this button so that it has a higher specificity. And I'm going to use the hand. If I was going to use it outside of this button, I'm going to use, if I were to place this style outside of this button, I'm going to use button with the hover pseudo class. But since it's inside this button, I'm just going to use hand to represent this button. So that's it. So when I don't think this is the color I use. No, this is not the color I use for that website. So it's IE40 AF. This is the shade of blue I used. So when I hover it, you can see that it changes. But it changes very fast. If you observe, it's too fast. In this original website, you can see that it's not so fast. The transition is not so fast. It's a little bit slower. But this one is so fast. Immediately I enter, it changes color. So I want it to be a little bit slower, just a nice and smooth. There's a property for that. It's called transition. So there are some properties that can undergo transition and some cannot. But a background color can undergo transition. So I'm going to give it a background color, a transition of 0.2 seconds. So it's going to take 0.2 seconds before it changes. So 0.2 seconds. Now I'm going to give it an additional property of I think it's called animation style. I'm going to give it a property of ease. Let me see if I can get it. Okay, the value is not here. Okay, it's not here, but it's called this particular value is the animation behavior. You can give it a value of easing, meaning meaning that when the transition is fired, it starts slow but finish normally. Then we have ease in out, meaning that it starts slow and finish slow. So in between it's smooth. So there are different transition styles you can use, but this easing just makes everything smooth. So you can look it's not too obvious, but if you pay attention, you will see that there's a difference on how it changes. It's just clean and smooth. All right, so what's the next thing we need to do? I think that's all for yeah, we have finished 2 sections. I think we are doing pretty well. So the next thing we're going to move on is to the skill section of things, the skill section. All right, so in the section part, we are also going to see it as a box. First off, this is our first box. Then it has 2 boxes inside, just like we did for the first and 2 examples. So in our styles, uh let's quickly give this the hero section. Hero section. Okay, page style, illustration, or header section. Header section. Then this is going to be the skill set section. Skill set section. All right. So let's go through this step by step. Sorry, AI. Skill sets. So let's put our skill set in place. So another section, I'm going to give it an ID of skill set tab. So the first div for the inside box, make it 2 div. So it's the 2 div, and one of them is going to take our image. All right. Okay, so the image is, let me do this, and it's dot/8. This is my image. Please use yours. Let's see if that comes up. So you can see that it's a really big image. Thankfully, I have set some resets in order. Remember this reset we put earlier for the image to make it a max width of 100%. This image by default is larger than this. If I didn't put that max width in place, it would break this page. Like I said, image can act a little bit weird. Now observe, if I remove this 100%, look at what the image has done. So it has broken our page, it has extended our page, because this is how large the image is by default. That's the quality of the image by default. So look at my huge, handsome, beautiful face, and it affected this one as well. So that's why we need this reset in place, either a max with a width of 100% or a max width of 100%, depending on how you want to do it. But just make sure you handle your image well. So now it's now I've put the max width in place to tell you that I know that this image is larger than this whole screen right now, but I'm telling you that despite the fact that you're large, I want your max width to not exceed this screen. So I've forced it to shrink its width to take a maximum of this place as its width. That is the 100% of the parent container. Now the parent container, as at this point, is the section. Where is the section? Yeah, this section, and this section is a block element. And I said block element take the whole space. Now I've not given this section a width yet, but I'm going to do that right now so that the image can shrink width to width. But before I get to that, let me first put in my other section, which is the UL, a list of items. So I'm just going to copy and paste it, which is a list of our skill sets. Then here is going to be a H2, which is skills, right? Let me check. I think now this is it. This is it here. Not sure if I use skills. Yeah, I use skills here. So skills with an S. All right, now let's go into our styling phase. So within the skill set, we're going to give it a width of 80%. Now observe that now we've given the skill set a width of 80%. Because of its 80%, we've told the image to take 100% of 80%. That is the max width here of 100%. So that's 100% of 80%, and that's why it's shrink together with the section width. If we had not specified that, it would just do as it wanted. Even though we are shrinking the section width, it would not obey us. So it's good to always have that reset in place. Okay, then let me press tab. Then secondly, we are going to give a background color. I'm going to give this a background color. A background color of E9E CEF, which is a gray, like a whitish gray like color. You might not notice it so often. You may not notice it at all at this point. Okay, this is it here. So you can see the difference between these two. Then I'm going to also give it a display of flex. Or first of all, the display of flex actually. Display of flex. So you can see that they are side by side now. Then I'm going to give it a justify content. No, not justify self, justify content. Space around. Now we can't see any difference for the justify content space around, because there is no extra space to put around them. They are taking up the whole space, both the image and this skill section of it. So first of all, let me first center this part of things. I'm going to put it in between here and give it a margin of 4 rem. That's for the top and for the bottom. No, actually, let me go with 5 rem. So because to have more space, this is the middle part of the page, so I want more space there. So 5 rem top and down. Then this one is going to be centered. All right, then let me just comment this out because you would not see it at this point. Then I'm going to target the first element, which is the picture over here, and give it a that is div, the first child. And I'm going to give it a flex basis. Flex basis of 40%. All right, so it has finally showed up. It took some time to show up. So now this is the flex basis of 40% out of the 80% spacing I gave this parent container, this section. And then since the max width of the image is 100% of the container, so that's 100% of the 40% right here. So if I decide to try this justify content now, space around, you will see that it now works because I've given it a space of 40%, and there is now extra space within the container to play with and allocate for the around justify content. All right, so the next thing we are going to do here, after giving it a flex spaces of 40%, we are going to target this image, that same image, and then give it a border radius of 15 to give us this curve angle here, just as we did here. So this curve angle here. So if you like that, you can put that. If you don't like it, you can maybe decide your own, so that your own can be different. The border radius of 15 pixels. As you can see, voila, we have them right here. Then I'm going to give it an aspect ratio. Aspect ratio of 1:1. That means how do I explain aspect ratio? It's the relationship between the width and the height of an element. So I'm giving it the width an aspect ratio of 1. This is 1:1. That means if the width is if the width is 5 pixels, the height must be 5 pixels. So this is an aspect ratio of a box. So the width and the height, if the width is 5 pixels, the box would be 5 pixels. It must be 5 pixels. If I give it a 2:1 aspect ratio, that means I'm saying if the width is, say, 10 pixels, the height would be 5 pixels. So it's the relationship between the two, the ratio of one to the other. If I give it an aspect ratio of say 3:1 or 3 or 4:3, there are so many aspects I could give it. It just makes sure that it's a way of making sure that I can control the width and height of an element to make sure that it follows a flow which I want it to follow. So it's the relationship between the width and the height of an element. That's it about aspect ratio. So if I give it if I give it an aspect ratio of 1:1, what that simply means is that they will both be uniform. They will be the same. And for my image, I'm giving it an aspect ratio of 1:1, which means that, as you can see now, it has shrink because it has to be uniform. So if this is whatever this one too will be the same thing. Whatever the height of the width of this one too must be the width of this. But if I remove it, you can see that normally the height of this image is longer than the width. But I want it to be a square, a box. That is, it should have the same here, the same here, the same here, the same here. So I'm forcing it to take an aspect ratio of 1:1. And because of that, it is now squished. The image is looking squished. I don't want it to be squished, but I still want it to have this box like frame, like a frame of a box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a new property called object fit. Now it's going to take in this image now within this frame that I've specified. Now it's I'm going to give it a value of cover. We have other values that contain, but what this cover means is that take the image that can fit into this container and crop out the parts that can't. So I don't want it squished. I think the default should be contained. Let me see what contain gives us, because there are other values. Okay, what contain does is that it shows the entire image and may leave empty space if the image is small enough or not big enough to take audio entire container. So the way object fit works, the way the property work is that it controls how an image or a video should be resized to fill a particular container, which I specify with this aspect ratio. So the value I want to use here is cover, and like I said, what this cover does is that it fills the entire container, and it may crop if it needs to. In this case, it actually did crop it because it needs to. But this is my container I specified 1:1, and I gave it the value of crop. There are many other values. There's fill, there's fill. Fill acts like crop, but only that it makes sure the entire image fill it, and it doesn't mind distorting the image to do so. and fill is actually the default value of this object. That's why when I remove it, this is what fill does. You can see that if I leave it at fill, nothing changes, because this is the default value of fill. This is what happens when it is shrinked, and when it is shrink like I did here, and it's not fitting the default aspect ratio of the image. I'm talking about a lot of things and it's getting a little bit complicated, but just know that what the object fit does is that it makes sure an image, it controls how an image is resized to fill a particular container. And the default we have here is that it is fill. And what fill does is that it tries as much as possible to allow the image to fit to fill in the container, and it does not mind distorting the aspect ratio. The same concept applies to fill, but the same concept applies to cover, but cover preserves the aspect ratio, and it does not mind cropping out some features. Like you can see there, it has cropped out the head just so that the aspect ratio is not distorted, unlike before where it was looking stretched. All right, so that's a lot of information. Please, if you have any question, drop it in the comment section, or you can make use of your AI. You can tell it to explain these things I'm talking about. You can just please ask your AI to explain the object fit property for you, and it will do so. But firstly, drop it in the comment section if you have any question, and just see AI as your partner to work with. All right, so moving forward, I am now going to give it a position. I'm going to position this image within this container. I want it to come down because I want my head to show. So now that we've specified the object's fit to be cover, we are going to specify the object position, and I'm going to give the value of center. I think that's the value by default. It's already center that is on the X and on the Y axis, but I want it to be centered on the X. That's all right, but on this Y, I don't want it to be centered. I want to go up. I want it to come down small. I want it to come down a little bit. So to do that, I am going to give it on the Y axis a value of 21%. 21%. So it's going to come down small by 21. If I keep increasing it, it's going to keep coming down, come down. If I give the negative value, it's going to be going up and keep going up. So I think this is what I want right here. So next, I'm going to target the last child, which is div. This right now on the last child. On the last child, I'm going to give it a flex basis of 40. Flex basis of 40%. Okay, percentage on this thing. Then I'm going to give it a flex. Let me first see what happens. So this is the last child. We've distorted the width. Then this secondly, I'm going to give it that is the H2. I'm going to start this H2 here. I'm going to give it a margin, H2. Margin bottom of 20 pixels. Then after that, I'm going to give it a border bottom as well. That margin bottom puts in some space. Then a border at the bottom. A border of 3 pixels. Solid. And a particular grayish kind of color. That's D1, D5B. So that's D1, D5DB. So this is the clean border right here. Then I also want to style this list over here. So this list over here, we're going to be starting the list. We'll display a flex. I'll give it the flex wrap. And then I'm gonna give it a gap. But before I go, this is what I have. The wrap makes sure that it comes down. That it comes down here. If I take away the wrap, it's just gonna squish together. So the wrap makes sure that it comes down. So after the wrap, I'm gonna give it a gap of say 15 pixels. So the gap puts space in between them. It puts space both horizontally and vertically. If I want only horizontal, I'm going to give it a row gap. And if I want only vertical, I'm going to give it a column gap. Observe, we have the row gap like so, and the column gap, but let's just leave it as gap. Then secondly, I'm also going to justify the content to be space between. I want the space to be in between them. So justify content, space between, just like this. Then afterwards, now I'm going to start styling the list, the li. Now like I said, I could decide to put this li in between this ul, because the li is actually within the ul, but I don't like going beyond 3, and I have 1, 2, 3 already. So I would rather just put them on their own, and it still works very much that way. So I'm going to give it a border of 3 pixels solid red, 3 pixels solid black actually. And observe what that does. So this is what we have here. We are getting there. We're trying to get to this point. So afterwards, we are going to give the padding of 10 pixels up and down, and 15 right and left. 10 pixels, 15. That's what we have now. Okay, we are still getting there. We're getting there. Then afterwards, I'm going to give it a border radius for that rounded corner we had earlier. So of 8 pixels. Then a font width of bold. So let's see what we have now. So we get that rounded corner, and then they also have a font width, a bold font width. And then I don't think this space is necessary. I don't think we need this space. So I'm going to delete this space in between. Yeah, this looks more like it. Then I want to add this hover effect. You can see two things happen when I hover over it. First of all, it has a smooth transition. It's not so fast, it's smooth. And then the background becomes blue, and then this border also becomes a lighter blue color, and the color also becomes white. So we have a lot of work to do right there. Then I'm going to take on this li. I don't want to nest it inside. Like I said, it has gotten to 3. I don't like going beyond 3. But if I was going to nest it, I'm going to use the and use the hover effect, but I don't want to do that because I don't like going. You can do that, but I just don't like to do that. So I'm going to use it for itself and use the hover effect. Then I'm going to set the border. First of all, the border, like I said, the border changes to a light bluish kind of color. So we're going to do 3 pixels solid, and yeah, I think my AI got it right. So then I'm going to give it a background color. The background color also changes. Background color, it changes to a 1E4 0 AF. It's a deeper bluish color. Then the color, the text color also changes to white. So okay, then this transition, I'm not going to put it here. I'm going to put the transition within here. If I put okay, first of all, it works, but it's not smooth. It's not as smooth as we want it to be. This is actually smooth. I think I'm in the okay, this is the main one. This is the finished product. This is the main one. So you see that it's not smooth, unlike this one, which is actually smooth. So first of all, you can see that something is happening. We made the color white upon hover, and we made the border turn to a bluish and a darker blue background, but the border is a lighter blue background, but it's not smooth. It's happening immediately. So we're going to add that transition effect, and I'm going to add it here. I'm not going to add it here because if I add it here, the transition is going to work when my mouse enters, but immediately my mouse comes out, it's going to be fast. It's not going to be smooth. So it's always best to add it um on the normal styling of the element, not on the pseudo class hover styling. So let's get to it. I'm going to add a transition of for the background color. Okay, I see what my AI is suggesting for me now. For in this original one, in this original one, I only added transition for the background color, not for the not for this not for the text and not for the border. But here my AI has suggested something that I didn't even think of. First of all, we did for the border, then comma, we added one. First of all, we did for the background, then comma, we added one for the border, then we now added another one for the color. Let's see how that works. I think this one is much more smoother than the original one. Yes, it's actually much more smoother than the original one, because for the original one we only did for the border. So it's not so apparent, but if you look deeply, this one is much smoother, but it's not much of a noticeable difference, but this works better. So we're adding three-time transition. We use the comma to separate them, and that works best. That works well, actually. So lastly, I want to add a padding around this, and I want to add some curve around the edges. So I want to go to the back to the skill set styling, just around here, and I'm going to add a padding. Padding of 25 pixels up and down and 40 pixels left and right. 25 pixels up and down, 40 pixels left and right. So we can see that we have it that. Then I'm going to give it a border radius of 15 pixels. Okay, my AI is doing that. Then I'm going to give it a, this is working already. So I want to, so you can see that the curves are already there. Then I want to give it a box shadow. Not quite what I want, but we can adjust that. I want to change this to 206, 206. 212 and 218, 218. Then this one, I think I'll give it 8, 0.8. So this opacity value goes from 0 to 1. 0 means completely transparent, then 1 means opaque, that means it's not transparent at all. So 0 means invisible, practically invisible. So this 0.8 is from 0.1 to 0.9 is where you have how transparent or from 0 to 1 is how transparent you want it to be. 0 means completely transparent, being completely transparent, and 1 being opaque, fully visible. So anything you want to do with that, you can just style it how you want it to be. So there we have our about section, and it's looking very, very nice and beautiful. All right. Then before we head to the portfolio section, I want to quickly add something to to the body part. I want to style the body, give it a background gradient. So this body overall, I want to give it a gradient. That is the whole body of the page, a linear gradient, and it would go to bottom. To bottom, we have FE, F8, or F8, F9, FA, comma, and the other color would be E. Okay, I think this is it. E9, EC, EF. While this one is an off-white color, E, FE, F9, and FA. All right, let's see how that looks like. So it's not so obvious, but it's an off-white kind of color. It's not white. So this is, you can observe as I'm pulling this up, this is what white looks like. This is what white looks like. So as I begin to push it up, this is white, but this is not the color of white. This is an off-white color, but the real white is this. So if I comment this out quickly and I go back, this is our real white right here. Then when I do it, you see how it changes. So that's it. So the next section we're going to be working on is the portfolio part of the website, which is another section. So I'm going to quickly create a section. Remember, everything is a box, the same box concept, and let's get to it. So what we are trying to create looks like this, which is probably the maybe the most capturing part of this website. We have a portfolio head, it has a border, and we have a list of projects that we have done or supposedly done. So we're going to go back and create an h2 and name it portfolio. Then I'm going to put a div in place and give that div a class of projects. So this is a shortcut for giving class projects. And let me see what happens. So for each project, we have an image, a title, let me say an h2, and a paragraph tag. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to create a div. For the first project, we have an image. Okay. All right, this makes sense. So we have an image. Let me copy that again and bring that down. All right, so this should be the project 2. So we have an image, a title, and some text. Let's see how that looks like. All right, but I'm going to change this image to I'm going to change the project 1. I'm going to change this to project 2. So we can see that everything is coming together nicely. We are getting there. So I'm going to quickly copy and paste the remaining one here right now. Okay, there we go. So when we check it, we can see that project 1, project 2, then the rest. So let me quickly correct this ones. This one is the Code Academy. Copy. I'll change this from project 1 to the Code Academy. And then this one, then we have the scheduling app. Then also down here, all right, so everything looks proper and it's coming to place. Then we're going to give it a class of flex. We're going to give the container a width of 80% as well, and a class of flex. So let's get to the styling part. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to give this section, I forgot to give it an ID of portfolio. Yeah, so everything is nicely. We have an ID of portfolio, we have an h2, then we have a div container of projects, and everything is within the project. Then moving on to our styles, here we're going to put portfolio section, just like we did the rest. So I'm going to give it thumb. No, I don't want this to fit for me, but all right. So just a little bit of spacing here. So I'm going to start styling. I'm going to give it a width of 80%. 80%. I'm going to give it a margin. So you should know what this does at this point. I keep repeating it across the page. So we bring it to a width, and now we center it with this two. Then I'm going to go straight to, just to save time, I'm going to go straight to the H2. H2. Give it a font size of 2 rem. Then a margin bottom. So okay, let me finish this first. Margin bottom of 40 pixels, and a border. First of all, let me take it back. This is the H2 we are targeting. We give it a font size of 2 rem. That is twice the normal or 2 rem, actually 2 rem. Then a margin bottom, it comes bottom, and it has been centered, if you observe, which is it has been centered, and it has a width of 80%, which is what this two did here. Now we're going to give it a border. We're going to give this H2 a border at the bottom. So it's going to get a border of say 3 pixels, solid, and a blue like border, E40 AF. I think this is yeah, this is blue. No, I want a border bottom. Sorry, a border only at the bottom. I don't want it around it. So this is what we are looking for. Then next, we are going to be targeting these images. We don't want it like this. We don't want it like this. Then so the next, I'm going to go and build an image, nest the image tag inside of it, and then our image is going to take we're going to take a border radius of 15 pixels. 15 pixels. It's gonna be curved image, as you can see here. They are already curved. Then after the 15 pixels, I'm gonna give them an aspect ratio. An aspect ratio of this time 5 by 3. So the width is going to be longer than the height. It's going to be 5 times 5 by 3. This is the ratio of the width to the height. So the width is going to be at least a 2 times, or that's not how it works, but it's 5 by 3. So a ratio of 5 to 3. So the width is going to be 5 over the height of 3. So this is where it goes. So our width is going to be longer than it. Then I'm going to give it an object fit of cover. Object fit of cover, and an object position of center and 30%, so that I can see the top of it. So this is it. It's coming together nicely on it. All right, so now I want to give I want this image to appear in a layout, in a horizontal layout. To do that, I'm going to first target this project section, and I'm going to target this project section and all the div inside it. I'm going to give this project a display of flexbox, so that this div can appear in a layout fashion. So within this project, we have a div, and each div contains we have about 6 div, which contains an image, h3, and a paragraph tag. So the project is within this portfolio. So project, I'm going to move this image into it as well, because the image is practically inside of it, and we should not see any difference there. And it's still 1, 2, 3, so nothing is wrong there. So I'm going to give this project a display of flex. So you can see that they all come together, and they are all stuffed together, even though they have practically exceeded, I think. So I'm going to give it a flex wrap, so that the wrap, flex wrap of wrap, so that they wrap and come down. Okay, now they wrap and come down because the width of the image is so large that it's taking up the whole space of the flex. To correct that, I'm going to give it a flex basis. I'm going to give each div a flex basis, so that they fit into what I want, the width I want them to fit like. All right, so to do that, the div flex basis of 30%. No, just 30%. 30%. So you can see this is what I was aiming for right here. So then going back, I'm going to drop a justify content space between, because I want some space in between them, and this is it, their space. Then I also want space below them. Normally I would use a value of gap to apply space both in between them and across them, that is horizontally and vertically. But justify content space between already helps me apply value in between them. So I'm just going to apply value below them with row gap. So row gap means apply value only across the row. If I choose to put a value of gap, it's going to apply value across the row and the column. But row gap means only apply value across the row. So I'm going to give it a row gap of 40 pixels. So observe here, so it's spaced out here. So after that, I think the div, for the div, I'm going to give the text a line of center, because I want to center this text in between them. So text align center. Observe how they center around them. Then for the image, what else do I want to do here? I think I'm going to add a transition, because I want them to grow. If you notice here, they all grow when I come into them. When I hover into them, they grow. I'm going to add a hover effect, so that they scale. once I hover over them. So going back here, I'm going to come down because I think I've passed the three threshold. So I don't want it to be more than 3. I don't like nesting more than 3 elements. So over. So I'm going to tell you to, no, I don't want this. I'm going to tell you to scale to 1.05, and I'm going to put a transition on the scale, because if I leave it like this, the scale is going to be moving very fast. See, look, it's not smooth. So I'm going to tell you to take 0.3 seconds to scale. So transition, scale 0.3 seconds. So that it's now more smooth. So that's practically what the transition helps us do. It makes it smooth. So after that, I also want to target the h3, which is the this heading here, this h3 heading here, and I'm going to give it a value of a margin, just to put some space around them. So a margin and a font size, I want is two I'm going to put space around it, and I'm going to increase the font size. So margin of 10 pixels on the top, 10 pixels on top, 0 on the right, and 3 pixels on the bottom. Then the font size, I'm going to increase it to 1.5 rem and close. All right, so as you can see, these are the changes, and this is looking more like the site. So they look practically the same. So that's and as you can see, when I hover it, it's all changing. So that's practically how we got here in this tutorial. So now we are going to work on the last part of this project, the last section rather, which is the footer. Okay. Okay, let's just go to our finished product. Now we have the footer element, which is a box. It now has 3 separate boxes within it, and it has a rectangular box underneath. So first of all, we're going to give it a div within the footer, which is going to contain these 3 separate boxes, and then we're going to give it a paragraph tag underneath for this. So a box that has 2 boxes. The footer is a box. It has 2 boxes within it. The first one is going to be a div, and the second one is going to be a paragraph tag, and we're going to give it a copyright icon and copy. So and copy 2020. Let me just copy this and paste. So you should see that appear. Okay, let me just refresh this. Okay, you should see that appear here. Our live server is catching up, so that must have been a little glitch. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put these 3 things, these 3 section, the contact, the follow, and the form section. So now the first section, I can use a div, but I'm not going to use a div in this scenario. I'm going to use an address. Now an address tag is another semantic tag. Remember, it's all about optimizing our site. In this case, it's more meaningful to use an address. There's no difference in using a div and an address when it comes to styling. I can make them look this. I can get the same result with the 2 of them, but like I said, it's all about semantic. The reason why address is appropriate for this role is because we are talking about you reaching out to me, call me, contact, follow me. So in this case, it's more it's more meaningful to use an address, because we're telling the robots, we're telling the bots that whatever is contained within this address, it's a means of reaching out to us, if that makes sense. All right, I don't want to waste much of our time, so I'm going to create two address, and here we have an h3 or h3 and two other lists within them. So the first is going to be h3 contact, and follow. I think I gave it, okay, under h2 follow me, capital letter M to follow me. Then underneath the h2, we are now, keep in mind that this is the footer part of the website. This was the header. This was the header. This is the main content of the site, which goes in the main. So you can see how I arrange them. Even though I can get rid of this footer, I can get rid of this main, and I can get rid of this header and just leave all of them inside the body element and give them nav main section, and I could do it that way, which would give me the same result. But like I always say, it's just good practice. So for this purpose of creating a website, we don't have to use it, but just know that when you are creating a website in production, it's always nice to have this in place. So now I'm going to give it a list. We have two list item, which is the support and the, so li, I give it two li. Then I'm going to copy this and just paste it right here. You can decide to put a different phone number. That still works. As you can see, that's what we did here. Join, okay, it's join my course wait list. So I'm going to change this to join my, let me use a capital letter M, join my course wait list. Okay, I think we have everything down now. So now let's proceed to the styling of this form, this footer, and I'm going to be very fast when it comes to the styling, because I guess at this point we understand the bulk of what the styles do. So first of all, I'm going to give it a background color of this, which is the same color, a darker shade of blue. I'm going to give it a color of white, a text color of white. I'm going to give it a width of 80%. So at this point, I guess we already understand what all these do. I'm going to give it a margin of, this is going to be 5 rem, 5 rem. But I also want to make the bottom side, I don't want, if I leave it at this, it's going to make the top and bottom 5 rem. I want the bottom to be 2 rem, 2 rem. So that means the top is going to be 5. The left and right is on, the left and right would be on auto, because I use auto. But you know what, let me just complete this. So the left and right would be auto. Then this down part would have a spacing of 2 rem, but the left and right will be centered because I'm using auto. Then next, I'm gonna give it a padding of 40 pixels. That is all around. So if I go back to the I don't know why my live server is taking some time to refresh. Okay, this is the problem right here. I gave it an ID of footer, but there is no ID here. I didn't specify an ID here, so it's targeting nothing actually. but we can just target this footer icon this footer element directly, because we don't have any other element that is called footer on the page. So this is it. So we should see it come up at this point. All right. I hope you saw that, and you probably saw it before I saw it, and you made your correction on that. Then I'm gonna give it a border radius of 5 pixels, 15 pixels rather, to make it smooth. Then I'm gonna give it a box shadow of 22. I don't want this color. 22, 36 for the green. Then for the blue, I want it to be 71. 71, and I'm totally fine with this right here. All right, so that being said, I think our footer is looking nice. Now it's time for us to center this part of things. We are going to target this div only, not this footer. We're going to get to this paragraph tag soon, but let's first target this div and give it a display of flex. So I'm going to nest it inside the footer, because it's inside the footer actually. Give it a display of flex, and I'm also going to justify content space around. All right, so okay, we're getting there. Then next, I'm going to target the address, or the address. I want to give the font. I want the font style to be normal. So address, because if you observe here, these fonts, they are looking italicized. So by default, the browser decided to give the address tag a font style of italic. I don't want it to be italic, so I'm going to give it a font style of normal. Font style. Now observe. Let me see. Okay, I said font size instead of font style. So now observe. This should have changed. So I made a mistake. I said font size. If I decide to remove this font style, you will see that they are italicized. Then when I put them back in, see that they become straight up. So that's why I had to change the font style. Then I'm going to target this paragraph tag here. I'm going to center it, and also give it a margin top space. I want to space it down. So first of all, okay, not margin top of no, I want 1.5 rem. And text align center, and voila, it has been centered. Then I'm going to target this h2 and this label tag here. So I'm going to target these this is the first, or the ht2 h3, and this label tag here. So h2, the label, and I'm going to give them a display of block. Then a font size of 1.1 rem. Then a font weight of a bold font weight of bold. Then lastly, I'm going to give it a margin bottom of 10 pixels. So let's see how that looks. That looks quite nice. So now let's style this input right here. We're going to style the input and the button. So input. So first of all, I'm going to give the input a width of 100%. I'm going to give it a padding of 10 pixels. I'm going to give it a border of this, but I'm going to change the color to CD4 4D, so CED, which is a whitish kind of color. Then next I'm going to give it a next I'm going to give it a border radius of 5 pixels. Then I'm going to give it a font size of 1 rem. Then I'm going to give it a background color. Let's first see what we have here. This is what we have here at the moment. You can see that I gave it a border. The border was not blue before, but that's where this comes in. The padding is the space in between them. You can see that if I remove this padding, it shrinks. So the space in between the border, and the border radius is for this curve edges. I think we should understand it at this point. So then next I'm going to give it a background color of off-white. This is currently white, so it's going to be off-white, just a slight difference to make it clean, to give it a cleaner look. So this is off-white. So you may or may not notice it, but you have to look in deeper to see it. Then after the background color, I'm going to give it I'm going to style the focus actually. So the focus is when I click on it. So at this point, it's not in focus. Focus is when I click on it. So this is the border I gave it at this point. This is the border, the whitish kind of border. Now, when I click on it, what is going to happen? That's the focus state. So in the focus state, which is when I click on it, I'm going to give it an outline of none. The outline is the border, the current border it has. An outline is not a border. It's not the same thing as a border, but it acts like a border. Only there are some differences between border and outline. There are some little differences, but the outline behave in the same manner as a border with some little differences. So that being said, I'm going to give it a border color of, it's still going to be blue, but a slight variant of blue. Then I'm going to give it a box shadow of 37.99. That's 235 and 0.7 shade. No, I think 0.5 should do just fine. So this is the focus state, which is when I click on it. This is how it looks. So you can see it looks more smooth. The outline has been removed. That little outline we saw the last time when I click on it. Let me just show you. When I move it, so this is the outline. So it acts like a border, but it's not really a border per se. It's a little bit difficult to style, which is why we removed it in favor of using a border and the box shadow for the shadow effect. So I remove the outline, and we have a box shadow and a border color. So now I want to give it a transition. So the transition is going to be for the box shadow, for the border color and the box shadow, so that when it comes into focus at this point, it's going to be smooth. And you can see my AI has already done that for me. I'm going to click on tab, and this is what we want. We want the border color to have a 0.3 transition, and same goes for the box shadow. So if we go back now and we click on it, you can see that it's now more smoother. You may or may not, you may have to like comment it out and re-comment it to notice the difference, but it's working very smooth at this point. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and style this button over here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to enter the button class, and I'm going to give the button a background color, of this, yes, a bluish kind of color. So it should change to blue. Then second of all, I'm going to give the color of white. Then I'm going to give the border. I'm going to remove the border from the button, the border of none. Then I'm also going to give it a padding. At this point, we can see that there is no padding. It has the color of white and no border. So I'm going to put space in between the border, where the border will be, and the text. So I'm going to give it a padding of 10 by 20. So 10 pixels up and down and 20 pixels right and left. Observe. So this is what we have right here. Then I'm going to make this corner rounded with the border radius. To be 5 pixels. Then cursor to be pointer, so that when we hover over it with our mouse, it gives us that click effects, that click display. Then font size is going to be 1.2 rem. Font size 1.2 rem. Then the hover effects, I want to put and hover. So when I hover, I wanted to have a background color of this. My AI got it right. So when I looked at it now, our button is looking very nice at this point. So when I hover over it, it turns to this color. But I want it to be smooth. The transition so I'm going to give it a transition of 0.3 is like I normally would for, like I've been doing for the many ones. So transition, let's see if our AI can get it right. No, it does not get it right. So transition, uh it still has not gotten it right. Okay, background color. Okay, now it comes out. So background color 0.3 is, and when I come down, you can see how smooth it goes, how smooth it takes effect. So at this point, they are the same. Input your email here. This one says enter your email. So let's just change that quickly to enter your email. Enter your email. So we are going back. Enter your email. So now they look identical. They are practically the same at this point. The only difference now are these icons. Now, when it comes to dealing with icon, we are going to use a special kind of image called an SVG image. Now, we typically have two types of image. We have the raster image, or the raster graphics, and we have the vector graphics. If you're a graphics designer, you should understand what I'm talking about. So you can look it up, you can look up the difference, but to summarize, the raster graphics are made up of pixels. And one flaw of the raster graphics is that when you continue to zoom, when you zoom in, at some point, or when you enlarge it, at some point you will notice that they become very blur. But vector graphics are made up of mathematical equations. So they are made up of mathematical points and equations. So the browser just evaluates it. So even when you are zooming it, it does not get blurred out, because it's just calculations on point. So it's still the same equation and calculations the browser is dealing with. Examples of raster graphics is your PNG, your JPEG, your WebP, AVIF, and so on, the common type of images. And one example of vector graphics are the SVG graphics. So for icons, you can decide to use raster graphics, but most of the time you will see vector graphics being used for icons. Now, to get vector graphics, there are a lot of sites I go to, but one popular one that I make use of, I might show you the main one if you, as we continue to release different videos on my channel, but a popular one is Font Awesome. Font Awesome. Then you're going to search for it right here. You can decide to go through the website and explore. You're going to search for it right here. And the first one I use is the phone. So this is it here. So some of them are free, some of them are paid. Like these two are paid, but I'm going to use this right here. Now, there are different ways we can include these graphics in our website. One of the most simplest way to do it is like this, through HTML. But to use this, we would have to first embed the link in our HTML code, and I didn't talk about that in this class, in this video, so I'm not going to use this. But just know that I feel this is the simplest way to use it, but I'm not going to use it at this point. I'm going to use the direct SVG code, and I'm not going to talk much about SVG in this video because it's a bit out of the scope of this video. But somewhere down the line, I might release a video on SVG on my YouTube channel. So this is the most easiest way to do it, but because I'm not embedding the link, I won't use it at this point. But you can decide to go through the sites and see how you can use this. But I'm going to use this at this point, which is a little bit complicated, but don't worry, we are not going to touch it really. So I'm going to copy it and go over here. So let me see what I did here. I put a phone here. So right here, I want to paste it, but I want it on a straight line. So I'm going to click on Control Z, which is back. So sometimes Visual Studio Code acts a little bit weird when dealing with when you are copying and pasting some code. And if you want it to be on a straight line, you can just Control Z, or on Mac Command Z for it to straighten up. Or you can decide to just put it on manually, put it on a straight line by yourself. All right, so this is where we are. And let me refresh this. You can see that we have our phone icon right here. So we need to style it so that it fits into what we want it to be, like this. But before we start styling it, I want to grab this mail icon as well. To envelope, I'm going to go to SVG and I'm going to copy it. Just click on it to copy it. Then I'm going to go back here and put the mail just above here. Control Z, and it's on a straight line. You can decide to do Control Z, or you can just leave it like that if you would prefer it like this. Some people prefer it like this, but I want it on a straight line. So then this is what we have now. So now we're going to style these SVG icons. Remember, they have the SVG tag, so we're going to click on the SVG with the type selector or the element selector inside of this footer elements. I'm going to nest it inside of it, SVG, and I'm going to give it a few. Now, when we want to give a text a color, we use color. We just use color, just simple color. But when we are dealing with SVG, when we want to give the body a color, we use fill. So fill is the SVG equivalent of color, and I'm going to give it a value of current color. What this current color means is that use the color that has been specified for the parent container. Now the color that is specified for this parent color container is white, which is and the parent container is footer. As you can see here, this is this is our SVG. Now this is the parent container actually. This is the li, but I've not specified anything for this li. Then it's going to go up until it reach the nearest parent container which has a color that has been specified for it, and I think that is footer at this point. If we look, I didn't give li ul or div, so yes, it is footer that has a color, so it's going to use the color that has been specified for this parent container, which is white. Now if we want to give the svg border a color, we would use stroke, not border this thing. We will use stroke in this point for the border, but at this point I don't want to give the border anything, so I'm going to give it, now you can see that it's white. I'm going to give it a width of 0.85 RAM, and you can see that they have been perfectly resized to this little icon right here. Now I notice that they are a little bit up. I want them centered, so I think they're a little bit above the text. It's not so obvious, but I can see it and I don't like it, so I can be a perfectionist like that. So everything, it just depends on how you want to style your page. So I'm going to give it a vertical align, so align vertically, and I'm going to give it a value of middle. So you should see some differences. I hope you observe that. So there was a little bit difference, a shift here in the height. All right, so then moving on, I'm also going to give put these some icons for this, a LinkedIn icon, Instagram icon, and Twitter icon. And once I paste them in, they are automatically going to appear like this because I've already styled it. Now this should be a link, but I don't think I gave them, I placed them under a link. Yeah, I didn't put them under a link. So I'm going to copy and cut this, put the link tag, and just copy and paste. Let me just put this thing. Then same goes for this one. Put the link tag, not Facebook, Instagram, then the Twitter as well. Put the link, just hash, and yeah, there we go. So I want to leave space for the SVG icons. First of all, let's go get LinkedIn icon. And I'm going to copy it onto Z. Then Instagram, copy, Control Z, or Command Z in my case. And I'm going to go for Twitter. Twitter is now X at this point, but I don't. The X is, it feels too short, so I just leave Twitter there. Twitter. Did I spell that right? So so we have our icon perfectly aligned. Just okay. I used YouTube right here. My mistake. So we have our icons perfectly aligned, and I'm going to change this to from Twitter to X. Let me just see how that works. No, I don't like this. Let me just use YouTube. The X is just one letter and it's not making sense like that. So I'm going to go back to YouTube. I'm going to search for YouTube icon. YouTube, take it, copy it, copy the SVG, just click on it and Control V, Control Z for it to be straight. Okay, let's see what we have now. Okay, YouTube. Now you would observe that these icons are not changing. In this version, the icons change together with the link when they change color. So I think I placed the link outside. I placed the icon outside of the link. Yeah, they should be inside of the link. So I'm going to hold my Option or Alt key. Option in Mac, Option in Windows, Alt, and click down. So that is another shortcut. You can go to the Visual Studio settings and look through the keyboard shortcuts. You should see a lot of them. You can even customize them to see how I'm working with these things. So I'm going to bring this thing down. Okay, then this one as well. All right, so let's see what we have now. So they are now changing. So I think that's all for our site. So we are completely done with our site. It's looking so beautifully styled and nice. I know this video was a lot, but just take your time to go through it. Now, one last thing I want to put here that I didn't really put it here. I didn't really do anything here. When I click on this icon, I want them to move to the location. So I'm going to change this to I'm going to remove this about, because about is already here, but I want to change this to, I'm going to bring the skill here, the portfolio next, and then I'm going to put contacts as the last thing, contact here. All right, so let's see how that goes. So here, I'm going to change about to skills. I want to change this one, bring up the portfolio. And then this one is going to be contacts. Okay. So this is going to go to the skill page. So for the skill, we have an ID of skill set. I'm gonna put this here. Hash to signify that this is an ID. Then Control V. Then for the portfolio, I'm going to copy this as well. So hash to signify this is a portfolio, then Control V. Then lastly, the contacts. All right, so I'm just going to give the footer an ID because the contact is within the footer, and then I'm going to just link it to the footer instead. Give it an ID to signify that this is an ID. And then let's see what we have here. When I click on this, it goes to the style. You see? And contacts, it goes down. But I don't like the way it's jumping. I don't want it to jump. I want it to scroll smoothly. So I'm going to introduce you to a new style. We're going to put it in our reset and give it within the HTML container itself, HTML, and give it a scroll behavior of smooth. So it's going to change from the default to smooth. So now when I click on skills, it scrolls smoothly. So that's about it for this website. I know this video was a lot, but we got to where we wanted to at the ending. So our website is now finished and it looks very nice, just like the final product. I'm going to drop the link to this code in the description section so that you can download it and customize the sites as you want to, or just use it in your portfolio or in your work. If you want to use it, all you need to do is just change in this picture. Don't use my picture, please. Just use yours and personalize it so that it can be yours and just display on your portfolio. I'm also going to be dropping the link to these pictures so that you can, if you want to code along, you can decide to download the pictures from in the description section. Just check the description section and decide to code along, or you can just download the whole code base, which I'll be dropping in the description section as well. Or if you're on my WhatsApp channel, please join my WhatsApp channel. Everything is being dropped there as well. So thank you for watching this video. If you like it, if it was helpful, I hope it was helpful. I know it was a long video, but I do hope it was helpful to you. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Peace out.